Alright, so this article that I found today that I wanted to share and I want to comment on it, maybe have a discussion about it. Article is titled, Whistleblower Makes Claims of Systematic Doping in China. It says Chinese whistleblower Zhu Yinxian claims tests for doping in China during the 1980s and 1990s had only one purpose, to ensure Chinese athletes traveled to competitions without being caught. Chinese whistleblower now seeking political asylum in Germany has claimed there was a systematic doping program in China during the 1980s and 1990s across a range of sports. In a television interview with German broadcaster ARD, Chinese doctor Xu Yinxian, 79, claims more than 10,000 athletes in different sports were involved in a state-backed doping program. The interview with Zhu comes from the same German investigative team which first made claims of widespread doping in Russia, which ultimately led to the Russian athletics team being banned from the 2016 Olympic Games. Xu says all medals won by Chinese athletes at major international tournaments in the last 2 decades of the 20th century are tainted by doping and should be handed back. In the 1980s and 90s, Chinese athletes on the national teams made extensive use of doping substances, claims Xu. Medals were tainted by doping, gold, silver, and bronze. All international medals won by Chinese athletes in that time should be taken back. Xu had worked as a doctor with several national Chinese teams from the 1970s, but fled China with her son after speaking out against doping in 2012 and says she no longer felt safe in her home city, Beijing. There must have been more than 10,000 people involved, claims Xu. People in China believed only in doping. Anyone who took doping substances was seen to be defending the honor of the country. Anyone against doping damaged the country, and anyone who endangered the country now sits in prison. Xu says tests for doping at that time had only one purpose, to ensure Chinese athletes traveled to competitions without being caught. She says the call sign "Grandma is home" was applied to those athletes who no longer had traces of doping substances in their body. Xu says doping was compulsory for athletes in the teams she worked with. If you refused to dope, you had to leave the team, she said. At first, the youth age group teams used the substances. The youngest were 11 years old. I couldn't do anything about it. Xu says that she first became aware of the problem when a coach came to her concerned about the physical changes in male athletes aged between 13 and 14 due to substances handed out by Chinese officials. She says she was dismissed from working with the national Chinese team for refusing to treat a gymnast with the banned substance at the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, but kept working in lower-level Chinese sport. She says she was warned to keep quiet about doping in China before the 2008 Beijing Olympic Summer Games. She claims there were attempts by the Chinese government to intimidate her, and police cars were often parked outside her home. She says she was visited in her Beijing apartment by government officials. They warned me against talking about doping substances, she said. They urged me to back down. I said I couldn't do that. They wanted to silence me. After the death of my husband, they constantly came to me when there was a sporting event. I was forbidden to talk about doping, and sometimes they phoned our home at 5 a.m. Both of my sons lost their jobs. ARD reporters tried to contact the Chinese Olympic Committee and China's Ministry of Sports for a response to the claims, but never received a reply, according to the broadcast. That's the end of the article. I'll put the link in the description section of this video if you want to read the article for yourself. But I wanted to talk about that. First, I want to bring it out because, a lot of the work that I do is I promote the Chinese martial arts and the Chinese culture, but this is something that I don't promote, even though it's happened, supposedly happened in China. I don't know if it's true, but say, if it is true, it's very disappointing, and it just aims at a problem that I've always seen in pretty much all athletic competitions, not just the Olympics, but just professional sports and just any type of athletic competition. Even if it's not competition, I mean, people that take these substances, they do it, for themselves, or, there might be bodybuilders or just people that just do it just to do it. And, I'm against these sorts of substances. I believe in natural training. just through natural hard work and just eat healthy and just be the best that you can be, and just not compare yourself to other people so much. And I think that's the problem with when you idolize these Olympic athletes and these professional athletes, is you don't know the reality of what they're doing and what they're on and what kind of drugs they're taking, or if they're natural or not. But you do know what you're doing. You know if you're cheating. You know if you're taking substances. You know what you're eating. You know what you're putting in your body. And if you just if you just keep trying to better yourself and compare yourself to what you were and try to be better or maintain what we're try to get to the level that you used to be at, that's a reliable source of motivation. But I just don't like the idea of like comparing yourself to somebody who's cheating, and there's a lot of Americans that's been caught cheating. You see it in the baseball with Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire. All these baseball players were cheating with the steroids. Lance Armstrong is a big one that's been cheating for the Tour de France. There's been some Olympic athletes from America that have been caught doping. America is known for that, and China, this is the first time I read an article like this about this, and it's something that I'm not proud about. Being Chinese American, I'm not proud of America cheating, and I'm not proud of China cheating. My thing is like is to not cheat, and it's just not fair to all these other countries involved where they're not cheating, they're being natural, they're being legit, but then they don't win a medal, or they get second place, third place, or they get fifth place or whatever, and then all the cheaters are standing up there taking all these medals, and it's just a systematic problem. And the biggest concern that draws attention to this article is that if it is true, you got the entire government that's cheating. It's not just an individual athlete, because when you're talking about these American athletes that got caught cheating, it's an individual that's cheating, and then they got the American governments that are regulating and pretty much punishing these cheaters. But if you're talking about a Chinese government that's pretty much the government is cheating, that's just a whole nother level, like completely. So then it's like if the government is like saying, okay, we're gonna cheat, and the only reason we're gonna test you guys is to make sure that you don't get caught by the Americans or all these other countries. I mean, that's very disappointing, and that's dishonorable. That's very it's what am I looking for? It's shameful, and I wouldn't be proud of that at all. And I don't know, who knows if the article is true or not, but I'm just assuming if it is true. And then just the problem, I mean, if it is true, it's just another thing that's highlighting the problems with what's the point of having Olympic Games if it's full of a bunch of cheaters, and then you don't know who's cheating and who isn't. And then it just diminishes the people that are truly not cheating. Like Usain Bolt, I look up to him and what he's accomplished. Say he truly is natural. It just diminishes what he's achieved, because now that you see all these other cheaters, you question whether or not he's one of them. Even though he probably isn't a cheater, but just when you catch so many cheaters, you just question every single athlete that's engaged in that entire competition. It just makes everybody look bad. And it's just like, if you cannot keep all the cheaters out of the Olympic Games, then it's not really like truly a fair game. Like this information is coming out 30 years, 40 years after the fact. And if it is true, it just pretty much makes the entire Olympic Games look like a joke. It's just like, it's like I would honestly rather have something more real, but like, hey, no substances are banned. Take whatever you want, and everybody involved everybody in here is on stuff and this is what they can do. At least that's real, you know. But here it's like, okay, you got like 30% of the people are real, that are not cheating, and then 70% are cheating. Okay, let's just mix them all in together and make it appear as if none of them are cheating. But that's impossible.
Yeah.
There are cheaters, there's clearly cheaters, and you cannot take all the cheaters out of there. The whole thing is just, you know, it's just not representing what it's originally intended to represent.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got somebody who set a world record like in 1980, and then cheater comes in 2000 and beats the record, but then he doesn't get caught, and then now this person's name has been erased from the record, the history of the record books, but he was the real athlete that didn't cheat. You know, it's just a huge problem. So much corruption that I don't look up to Olympic athletes. I don't look up to any professional athletes because I don't agree to that. I just really like to, you know, I'm more about the natural path, you know, and I really admire the people that are really skillful and talented at what they do, but they don't really compete. They just do it for health, you know, or artisticness.
Well, I think that the problem in this particular case, you mentioned it briefly before, that it's not, from what the article stated, or from the doctor who was administering at one time, administering the drugs, is that it's not even up to the athletes. That if the athlete was like, you know what, I don't do this. I train naturally, I work hard, I put in my time, I put in my dedication, I don't want this substance. In the article it stated that they were threatened to be kicked off the team. And so it's not, the problem here is not about the athletes, because from what I understand, these athletes, they would probably want to train without the doping, because it is a risk. It's a risk that, like, now it's going to come out, and it's interesting, but with the Olympic Games, it seems like no matter when, but if they find out you were doping, no matter when or how many years have passed, they can still strip you of that medal and of that title. So, you know, being a former athlete and being a person who is about fitness and wellness, I wouldn't want to threaten that. You know, I wouldn't want to risk that. And so I can only imagine, like, the athletes in China, you know, being faced with that decision. Okay, am I going to be allowed to participate in this, you know, on this Olympic team, or am I going to just let go of this opportunity because I don't want to do the doping or, you know, the drugs? And it's saddening because, you know, I've never lived in China. However, I do hear that the government is heavily involved in the daily lives and decisions of the citizens over there. And so you have these parents over these young athletes, and if they have the opportunity to go forth and to represent their country, it's a high honor. And so then you have that part of the culture coming in, where it's an honor to represent your country. You know, it's an honor to the family, it's an honor to the family name. And so now you have that aspect added on to these Olympic athletes. And so I don't think it's so much of just the individual, in this particular case, making a decision, you know, I'm going to dope because I'm going to cheat in order to place in the Olympic Games. Now it's about, if I'm going to be on this Olympic team and have the opportunity to even represent my country on this international level, I'm going to have to partake in these drugs. You know, and so then it begs the question, you know, what can be done? Perhaps this article will shed some light, and, you know, and the international board that's over the Olympic Games, they can put pressure on China and on the Chinese government to stop pressuring these athletes to do this, or else they can, it is possible that they can't do this, they can erase or take China out the games, period, until they clean up their act, or, you know, whatever probationary period. But if they find out about it and this allegation is taken seriously.
But the thing is, so they're talking about Russia, that clearly he's been caught.
Yeah.
And then they took him out 2016 or whatever, what year it was. And then now they're talking about China, and we already know America too.
Yeah.
You know, but these are like countries. They're talking about Russia and China. The officials are. The government is cheating. Not America is just the individuals cheating.
Yeah.
You know, but
so what do they do?
But what I'm basically saying is that, like, if you look at other countries, like say Japan or Thailand or just like those smaller countries, and say they don't win any medals, and their train of thought is, hey, you know, if we don't take this, we're not going to win anything. But if we take this, we're going to win a bunch of medals, and then they have to prove that we're cheating, and the chances of them proving that we're cheating, the chances are slim that they're even going to find out. And if they do find out, what's the punishment? Oh, they take back something that we wouldn't have gotten anyway. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the thing about Lance Armstrong that made an example, is that if he didn't cheat, he wouldn't have won any of that stuff. But because he cheated, he won 7 in a row, got all these endorsements, built up all this money, got all these foundations going, got all this fame, and then later on the truth comes out, and then what's the punishment? Oh, we're just gonna take back what you wouldn't have gotten anyway, and if he made $300 million, oh, we're just gonna fine you $100 million. I don't know what the numbers are, but do you know what I'm saying? It's like you robbing. I've made this point in another video. It's like you robbing a bank, and then the only punishment is we're gonna take back the money that you took. But if the money that you spent, we can't take that because you already spent it. But we'll take back the money that you have left. That's your punishment. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, those punishments are not severe enough. But if they like say, hey, you know, if you get caught, if the country gets caught legitimately, you're banned for life. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're banned from the Olympic Games forever. Then that's really serious. You know, like, say if you're an Olympic athlete and you get caught just once, you're banned for life. Like, you can't even compete in the Olympics ever again. That's serious. But if they say, oh, you just can't compete in the next one, but the one after you can, then it's just, they're like, well, but like I said, if they're such a low-level athlete that it's for certain that they wouldn't even place a medal if they didn't cheat, then it makes sense on why they cheat, because then they're like, well, if I cheat, then I'll place, and the only threat is they'll just take away what I wouldn't have gotten anyway.
No, I think that there's international ridicule, though, that goes with it as well. Like, it's not just about losing something that they wouldn't have gotten, you know, in the first place, but, I mean, that's a really big thing, you know, because the Olympics is televised worldwide, you know, and so the punishment isn't just the stripping of the medal alone. Like, you have people on the other side of the world. I'm like, are you serious? You know, I mean, it's like,
well, I guess
you know what I'm saying?
The reputation, like your reputation is damaged, but still.
No, because and then you have to look at it in that, you know, these people are performers. They get out. They're athletic performers. They are known as the top of the top. You know. And then, so you have to look at it this way. It's like a person, and I'm not saying that athletes, you know, these athletes are just egoistic. I'm just saying a person with this massive ego, right? And they want to be seen by the world, yeah? They want to be great before the world. And then something happens, and like their highest embarrassment is now exposed to this same world. But if you can imagine what that feels like, so it's like, you know, Olympic athletes are seen as the stellar athletes, and so for me, I just, you know, think that it's not just about, you know, they feel that, you know.
No, but the thing is, though, once they get caught, they're like, you know what? The second place is a cheater. They'll accuse them too. He's a cheater too, and then basically, then the truth comes out. It's not even not just Lance Armstrong was cheating, like his whole squad was cheating. And then a bunch of other people are caught cheating. The third place person was caught cheating. The fifth place person is caught cheating. Then it's just like, do you know what I'm saying? So then it's like, if they're all cheaters, then there's really nothing to be embarrassed about, because it's not like you're the only one. You're the only one that you're the only one that got caught.
Well, that was just...
And then that's the issue, is that that the natural people, like, it's almost, honestly, it's almost like if you're natural, it's almost like you have no chance. It's almost to that point, because that's how bodybuilding, like bodybuilding's known. There's not that many regulations in bodybuilding. They're known to take steroids, and Arnold Schwarzenegger took steroids. He admits it. Yeah. Sylvester Stallone took steroids. He admits it. Yeah. And a lot of bodybuilders, they're just frank about it. Hey, I take steroids. And they're basically saying, there's no way I would even come close to being able to compete if I didn't take steroids. And these Olympic athletes, it's like, you either cheat and then have the chance of making millions of dollars through endorsements, or you don't cheat and you make absolutely nothing and nobody even remembers your name. But then if you cheat, hey, you can make millions, and then you might get caught, and if you do get caught, they still know who you are, at least. Opposed to just being somebody who just came in last place.
So you go from being famous to being infamous.
No.
It's tough. The pressure alone is tough. Hell, being a regular athlete, a high school athlete, the pressure is tough. And so, I get it. We get it. I know you get it, but at the end of the day, it's hard, because you made a very valid point about, if you're going to do something that big, and then the striving for the notoriety as being this great athlete, participating in the games that is world renowned, it has to come down to the person's character and what's really important to them. Because not only is it a disgrace, and it's not natural, and it's cheating, but it's terrible for you. These young athletes taking the steroids now, in their youth or in their prime, it's helping them in their performance, yeah. But on a molecular level, you start to look at that stuff, and it is tearing the body apart. And then if you continue in doing this, as you get older, yeah. I don't even talk about it, heart attacks, stroke, dementia. I mean, it wreaks havoc on your body. So then you have to ask yourself, is the quality of my life worth it? Is my life worth it? Because just a couple months ago, we read articles and had a discussion about these bodybuilders who died. Hey, they lost their lives because they were taking steroids and all of these different supplements that the body couldn't take. It stressed out the heart. It shut down systems, and they took their lives. Is it worth it? And so, unfortunately, in this particular article, if it is true, it's not even up to the athletes. If they want to participate, the government is now stating you have to take this substance that in the end could possibly kill you.
Well, I mean, that's China's problem. We're not in China. And
yeah.
But I'm just saying, it just, to me, the root issue that I'm talking about is just the idea that this cannot really be regulated in any country.
Well, no, it's tough. It's tough because even if they stop in enough time, and this is usually how they do it in competitive sports, they will take the dope and then they'll stop in enough time to clean their system. So they still have the, I guess you can say the good from doping, but then they get rid of the evidence because they have all these different flushes and these different methods to clean their system out so that when it's time for them to get tested for the Olympic Games or for the bodybuilding competitions or for the athletic game, they're clean.
But what I'm saying is I just feel that the playing field should be evened. So then if China's doing this, okay, then America be like, all right, then we gonna do this too.
Right. We don't want to promote
I'm not saying promoting the badness, but at least making it like it's truthful. The truth is, these professional athletes are on this, and at least, okay, all 10,000 of these Chinese athletes, say they just competed within their own country, at least it's just like, they're all on the shit, let's see who's the best while they're on the shit.
Well, I mean, if we're going to take that step, well then, hey, why don't we have an Olympic Games for the people who want to dope, and then have one for the people who want to be natural?
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say, because
But that's what I'm saying. At the same time, you can't.
Yeah.
The people that dope will go into the other one to win all the medals.
Well, no, because the dope will be in their system or be found in the system. So you have to stay in the doping games.
No, but they can't like they still can't regulate because they'll flush it out. No, but basically what I'm saying like this: if the doping was to the point, if they had some type of technology that could find out that you did it at once, that even if you just did it once, that they'll find out like for certain no matter what. Then that's a reliable test. Then they'll test everybody. Oh, you're on dope. Okay, you're done. You can't even compete. Yeah. But the thing is, if you can flush it out your system, then that's not a reliable test.
Well, you know what? Technology is amazing, and we are advancing like every second of every day. So I believe that the technology, that it can be developed. However, I believe that there is a certain, that in some aspects, the officials expect it, and they allow that gray area. So like, as long as you didn't dope this long before the competition, you're good to go. You're clean. You're clean, right? Because the way technology is, what you're saying, they could come up with a way to biopsies. You can go in and take a little chunk of muscle,
It's just so hard to regulate, because I mean, you could have a natural athlete and then he gets tricked into eating something that has something in it.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
so then you just have to document your stuff, and just like they tell women, don't be drinking, taking drinks from strangers when you go out to bars because of roofies and, like the date rape, same thing. As an athlete, you gotta be cognizant of the stuff that you take in. If you didn't bring it and it wasn't with you all the time, then don't drink it. Because sometimes they'll even drop it and say your coach has your drink, and then someone sees your coach, and then your coach, someone who you trust, gives it to you. So you just have to be responsible when it comes to that. So regulating in that way, it can be difficult. But my thing is, on a government level, on a country level, on a full-scale team level with all the head coaches and everything, if they really wanted to be strict about doping and knowing who does it and who doesn't, they could come up with that technology. Just like they have the cure for all of these major diseases. As long as you have the resources and the money, you can get the cure for these incurable diseases. It's the same thing with doping. If they really wanted to put in the money and go ahead and develop ways to test these teams, they could do it. However, I believe, and it seems, because we're looking at this situation now, where some people dope, but then right before it's time for them to compete, they're clean, And so, but however, the effects of the doping are still there. Their performance is still tweaked because of this, whatever the substance is. So it's obvious, just like with Arnold. I'm sure before each competition, he was clean.
Well, I guess,
right?
I guess one thing that would be kind of like to make it like a standard that is kind of fair is like, okay, you can dope as long as you're clean when you're getting tested. Because and then at least then that's okay. Then if you get caught with the test and you're out, okay, then you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's just not fair for people to be like one person is really natural, for real natural, and the person's doping, but then acting like he's not. That, you know what I'm saying? But if they're honest and they're just like, hey, we're doping, but we have to do it in this certain way, so then it doesn't show up in the test, and then before we get involved in competition, we're actually clean. Yeah. Then that would make sense.
Yeah, but then it does kill the pure essence and the true meaning behind the Olympic Games.
Yeah, but it's already been tainted so bad through all these years.
Yeah, that's
from a
true.
lot of different countries and a lot of different people.
But then if everyone decides to do it, because there's still some athletes out there who have never touched it, and they are still amazing athletes. And I believe that as long as we have that type of talent out there, and that type of dedication, and that type of integrity out there, like, I'd want to encourage those athletes to stay on their path. But don't allow this to mess them up.
But the thing is, their mentality is, okay, I'm an amazing athlete, but if I take this, I'll even be better. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
I would hope not.
Like, imagine Usain Bolt on dope. Like, if he's natural, and he's on dope. You know what I'm saying?
Can you imagine all that with the dope in there? Like by the time he's 35, he'd probably have a heart attack, stroke, and die, kill over. You know, so you have to look at that too. Yeah, in your prime or while you're competing, this stuff is good. Okay, yeah, woo. But then, when you're living real life, when you are living life, and say now you are settled down and you have a family, you have a spouse, and you have children, and you know you started a business, or you're starting your legacy. You're working in organizations where you're, you know, talking to students and encouraging them, or you're coaching a team. And you're in the prime of this goodness. And then the ghosts from your past come up and they snatch life from you. You know? Is it worth it?
I mean, but the thing is, that's why I like to look up to more artists opposed to athletes. Because certain athletes, it's just, oh, you know, the fastest time, that's it. But like when you talk about like doping is not gonna really help a person to get better at dancing.
Well, some people would beg to differ. No. Some people would say, well, wait.
Or like singing too. You know what I'm saying? Or like just like certain skills.
Yeah, some natural things they just come.
Like Steph Curry, for example, like making all those threes. I mean, just because you take steroids don't mean you're gonna make the shot. You know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty. It's impressive. And then you look at him; he's not even all that swole up. But you know, it's like just making all these threes. You know, and it doesn't make somebody speak more intelligently or like be able to have intelligence like Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X or. You know, or like be able to rap like Tupac, or just because you're on steroids don't mean you can rap like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate artists where you're not just valuing them for just one thing. Oh, he's the fastest and that's it. But they have so many other things that they're good at.
Yeah.
That it's like they don't need to depend on this athletic performance to get your attention. They have so many other things that you could admire them for. That's why I look up to artists much more, because to be an artist is not just about taking steroids, you know what I'm saying? Or it's not about that. It's not about that at all.
Right.
You know, but a lot of these athletes, oh, you know, as long as I'm the fastest, I'm the strongest, then I'm gonna get all the attention and all the fame. But artists is not like that. You know, it's like you impact people's lives in different ways. You know, and that's the thing. That, you know, that's why I have a problem looking up to pretty much any athletes and really making a big deal about them. You know, because I just don't feel it's not only is it not healthy for the athletes, but it's just not healthy to look up to people just on a physical level in itself anyway. Yeah. You know, it's good to look up to people, you know, not just because they're fit, but just, you know, they're smart, they're intelligent, they're spiritual, they're meditative. Like they can educate you, they can teach you. Yeah. You know, like a director who directs a great movie, like the movie that we saw, steroids can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Or like somebody who writes an amazing book, or somebody who actually taught you something in life that really helped you in life. Steroids can't do that. Like great teachers, you know, like Socrates or something like that, or you know, Lao Tzu, Buddha. That's not steroids. You know, that's just wisdom. You know, and that's why I'm saying that. As people, we need to look beyond just the physical, because there's a lot of fake stuff out there. Yeah. You know, not just about the steroids, but I mean, because of the technology. You know, these women putting up these Instagram photos, and then everything's all airbrushed. They're blowing stuff up to make it look like a certain way, and they're like they're like sketching like things. Like it's like, and then like people catch them like look, your shoulder's like all the way up here, your neck's like this long, and it's just like, it's like they're looking up to things that aren't even real, you know? And it's just a problem in this culture when people look to the physical too much. When it comes to the men, it's all about, oh, how strong you are, how fast you are. When it comes to women, oh, how perfect you look in this picture. But it's like people are beyond, they're not just the physical. We gotta learn to look up to people from their intelligence, from their spirituality, or just great teachers. They're just great people. Yeah. You know, like people that look up to Jesus, for example, it's not about steroids. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to live like him. They want to be like him. Why? Because he's a great person, not because he's on steroids. And that's the problem. Is like people like that admire people that are just so amazingly athletic. To me, it's not a big deal. It's like, okay, he's strong, but he's not stronger than that lion. He's not stronger than that gorilla. He's not stronger than that elephant. It's like, why don't we look up to the animals? They're like amazingly physical, you know, physically capable. Like men are just like, it's just human. Okay, he could run a little faster. Oh, he could lift a little bit more, and they make such a huge deal about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think people make too much emphasis on these athletics, and then when it comes to like teachers and doctors or just people that are actually really helping people, they barely give them any money, they barely give them any attention, and they be like, oh, you know, whatever. Yeah. But these athletes, you know, they dropped out of high school to go pro, and then they're making all this money. Yeah. They're on steroids, and and they get all this attention, all this money. It's just like people got to change their mindsets into seeing qualities other than just that, because a lot of it is fake. And this article is just showing how fake it is, if the article is true. You know, it's just like, not just the Olympics, but just all professional stuff, you know? And like I said, with the woman, it's not about the steroids, but it's about looking a certain way, like always having to look perfect, like no matter what. You know, every single picture has to be perfect, every video has to be perfect. And it's just like, women are gonna age. So I don't care how much plastic surgery you have, but you're gonna age, and it's gonna deteriorate. And even if you are on steroids as a man, you're gonna get weaker. You're gonna die too. So it's like I really looked up to Bruce Lee. It's not just because he's cut and strong and fast, but what really helped me was his intelligence and leading me towards Eastern philosophy and basically helping me on a spiritual level. Because to me, Bruce Lee was like my Jesus for some people. Like he led me towards something greater that wasn't even about the physical. Now the physical might have been what caught my attention, but that's not what really held on to me into growing. And I think as people have to learn to mature and learn to appreciate people outside of the physical. You know, not just as athletes, but just even as life partners or you know, people that you just admire in general. You know, like, all you care about is how the woman looks, or all you care about how strong he is. It's like, what about everything else? You know? Yeah. So, you know, like, taking steroids ain't gonna get you that PhD, for example. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a lot of studying, that's a lot of research. That's writing that paper, speaking with eloquence or whatever. I mean, steroids ain't gonna do that. You know, but it's like, who are the people? Steroids are going to help Trump run America. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're gonna need to have a good president, right? Had nothing to do with steroids. You know, to be a great doctor, to be able to diagnose people and give perform surgery to save somebody's life. Has nothing to do with steroids. You know what I'm saying? It's like we need to look up to people for things outside of physical athletic performance. Yeah. You know.
When I was in school, in high school, we had something called the Student Athlete of the Week. And so, you know, we had a lot of talented athletes in the different fields of sports, you know, track and field, football, basketball. And the requirement was that this student not only displays great athletic skill and ability, but also their scholastic skill was up to par. You know, that was the focus. The focus was an educated, skilled athlete, not just a skilled athlete that's educated in the athletic that they're involved in, but they're scholastic and their academics as well. And they emphasized the student first, and then athlete of the week. And what has happened over the years, and it's something that I've seen happen in dance, the pure organic nature, the soulfulness of dance in many aspects has been lost. It's been lost to tricks. Everybody wants to see you do tricks. Now they call it dancers, people who can go out and do these different acrobatics and flips and stunts. not the pure essence of dance and movement. It's not about just going out and spinning on your head, flipping on your head. Not saying that that's not an aspect of dance, but I had someone go out and say, go out and do a freestyle dance for me. And all they did were they just tumbled and flipped and spun, and they weren't even on beat with the music. Like you didn't even keep rhythm with the music. And then you had a person who was filled with passion. I mean, they brought the music to life. You could see the music through their movement. And the pure essence of dance was all over them. But some people will look at that dancer and say, well, hell, they didn't do any tricks. They didn't flip, they didn't spin on their head. And it's like, so that's what I'm seeing, what's happening in athletics now, right? You have these artful athletics, athletes. And when I say artful, I mean, they come up with some amazing ways to train and condition, I think of Flojo. I was a huge admirer of hers. And I remember listening to an interview where she and her husband, who was also her coach, talked about how they trained. And I was like, oh my gosh, because it was exciting. It wasn't the same normal type of track and field training. Like she got up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and went and did some of these drills that they put together. And it went into her performance. It showed through her training, was exhibited in her performance, And so it goes far beyond just being the fastest, You got to be educated. You have to be smart. And I don't know if this will happen. It is possible because, anything is possible, right? But I don't know if people want that anymore. I don't know if they want to have the athlete who goes out, like just balls to the wall, like in Rocky IV. I know you're not a Rocky fan, but for those who are Rocky fans. In Rocky IV, you had Rocky against the great Russian Ivan Drago, right? And they showed them in their training. And Rocky, he up and went to Russia because, all the stuff that happened in the States, and I won't tell the story. But he was training, and Drago, he was training. And they showed him, and he was doping, and he had all this high-tech training stuff, and he was running inside and had a nice, comfy, cozy environment and atmosphere. Meanwhile, back at the ship, Rocky is in the mountains, snowing all over the place. He is pulling wagons that usually horses pull. He's picking up logs. He's using axes. Like he's doing straight, raw organic training, right? Coming up with some neat stuff, like he was hanging upside down from a beam in the barn doing sit-ups. I mean, some serious fun stuff, right? And in the end, of course it's the movies, but in the end, his training, which was all natural, 100%, his body, his mind, the elements.
Some things are steroids in real life.
Yeah, in real life. But I'm just saying what he represented in the movie. So I'm not saying Sylvester, I'm saying Rocky, okay? Sylvester versus Rocky, okay? So Rocky didn't do steroids. I can't speak on Sylvester. We're going to leave him alone. But I'm just, the story. Let's go to the story and the characters. But it just showed the dynamic. And the reason why I brought that up is because whether or not you believe it, that's real. The athlete who is putting forth 100% full-on essence and effort from them. They are disciplined, they are focused, they are creating ways to build up their strength and their stamina. And whatever sport it is, it could be whatever sport you do, but you are taking this creative side and adding it to your training. It's like what you do here. You are adding, you're creative when it comes to, we feel it, how creative you are. I think sometimes you dream up of different exercises to make us suffer. But it's great, you create. And from your creation, it draws up a new type of strength and a skill that's implemented in our DNA. Because we take that on and we use that without any elements outside, I'll say artificial elements, outside of the sheer training. And so it's possible to be stellar and amazing athletes by coming up with these creative ways to challenge your body, to push your body, and to become better skilled in whatever, athletics you're in, whatever sports you're doing. And I used that movie because some of the movement and the training that they were doing, like the Russian boxer, he was using machines, and then Rocky, the character Rocky, he was using the pure elements from outside. So he had the wind coming against him. It was snow, it was cold, so it was harder to breathe. So that helped to build up his lung capacity. The elements challenged him in such a way that, the Russians' atmosphere in this plush, warm, state-of-the-art gym didn't challenge him. Yeah? And so if you add elements like that, then it can take your conditioning up a notch. And I'm saying that that is possible. It is possible for a person to be an amazing dancer, and I mean a rhythmic dancer, a soulful dancer, without doing stunts and flips. It's also possible for a person who can do stunts and flips to be an amazing dancer, by bringing the music to life and not fighting the music. And so my thing is, I like I said, it's not impossible. But I don't know if the state of mind of a lot of the leaders, the people who are over, like the athletic teams and the government systems, who want to have the best representation for their countries, if they're even there, or there, it is possible for the true essence of that competition, the Olympics, to be in place. It is possible. I just don't know if that's what they want. Just like with bodybuilding, they have these natural bodybuilding competitions that are not natural at all. If you are getting implants anywhere, and then you go into this competition, a natural bodybuilding fitness figure competition, that is not natural. It's not natural. If you are putting things in your body that are not of you, that you weren't born with, and it's different if it's a situation where like you were sick or something. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about well-able-bodied people who can go out and train. And if we're training and we're both training hard, but then right before the competition or a couple months before, you go and get butt implants or calf implants or breast implants to make yourself more aesthetically pleasing, and then you place higher than a woman who is all natural, no implant, that is not a natural competition. And I believe that there should be a truly natural competition, and then a competition for the people who want to add and enhance, So I'm not judging, but I'm just saying, don't call something that it's not.
I know that's what we're talking about. Earlier.
So that's what I'm saying. And so, but the thing is, until the people who are over these organizations truly want a clean athlete with no doping, or people who are doing these figure fitness competitions truly want athletes who are all natural, until they truly want that, then it's still going to be that mix.
Yeah, like but I just feel that there's just, I just have an issue with competition in general, and I just feel that, like, what I promote is just people to train naturally on their own and express that natural way through their own expression. Because to me it goes into a spiritual thing as well. I think that people that strive to be competitive, and no matter what it is, there's some type of lack of spiritual groundedness, there that kind of, to me art is just a self-expression, it's creativity, it's not competition. Other people might try to turn it into competition, but for you it's not competition, because, like, say you're a singer and you just sing your best that you can, and it's other people start comparing you. Oh, is she better than this singer, that singer? You're not competing, but they're comparing, but it has nothing to do with you. But what I'm basically saying is, like, people, the individual should go, I feel the individual should go back to the non-competitiveness of just training and enjoying what you're doing and just being natural. Now, the article and what we're talking about is just highlighting the corruptedness of competition and all these competitions, and I'm just highlighting the other side of it. Is like, you don't have to get involved in this, but you could get involved in this, where you just develop yourself and just be the best that you can be. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. And if other people compare you to other people, that's them. That's not you. But, I think in my experience and this is just how I feel, and this is how I this is how I promote my art. This is the true way for me, you know, and that's how I teach my students, you know, and the people that learn from me, is that forget about comparing yourself to other people, forget about entering this competition, but just be the best that you can be. And you know, with the social media, with YouTube, it just allows us to be able to express what we work so hard to do. Because people enter into competitions because they want to share what they've been working so hard for so long. They've been doing. They just want to share with people. This is YouTube is just another way of sharing it with people. Hey, just videotape yourself doing something that you've been doing for 10 years. Just show people what you could do. You know, and there's beauty in that. It's not about, oh, who's better than who, but this is, hey, I've been practicing these nunchucks for 10 years, and look at this video. Ain't it cool? You know, it's just like, or I've been training for pull-ups for 30 years. Look at how many pull-ups I can do. It's not like a competition, but it's just sharing and inspiring people to kind of, you know, to better themselves. You know, and that's what I promote people to do. Like, I'm not going to be entering into any competitions. Because it's just nonsense to me. You know, it's just for what? You know what I'm saying? You know, it's baloney. But I'm all about expressing yourself as an artist. I mean, if you've been painting in a dark room or a room all by yourself, what's the point of doing it if you don't share it with people? Like, you eventually will want to share it with people. And that's what I mean what an artist does, is they like to share their art with people. It's not competition, but the other people can try to turn it into competition. Oh, who's better, Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan? Oh, who's better, Bruce Lee or Jet Li? Well, to them, it's not about them being better than the next person. It's just about them being the best that they can be. And then there's going to be people that appreciate that.
So I have something to say to that. So say that the person's artistry is their athletic sport, you know? Say that that runner, that is their artistry. I think that the point that I'm getting is that the focus on the competition in and of itself, that can drive and lead to corruption. But for some people, their art is their athletic sport, whatever it is. That's why you have some people like with Jordan. You know, his stuff was beautiful. It wasn't just that he was, you know, an aggressive athlete and he was just slam dunking on people's heads. I mean, he had a finesse. Like, you have to admit, there was some art behind some of the stuff he did, right?
But the thing that I would make the difference is that that's why they call it a sport. Like, there's art and then there's sport. Now, like, if you get into that, like, I would say Jordan would be more, everybody involved in athletics in that level, they're more of a sport than art. What I'm basically saying, okay, if that's your path and that's your path, but you see the corruption behind it, we already discussed that. But I'm talking about the true pure artist.
Yeah, but there's corruption in artistry, in arts as well. I mean, the problem with a lot of people in the martial arts period, and them taking things and labeling things that they shouldn't be labeling the way that they are, and trying to own something that doesn't belong to them. Even in like painting, there have been some artists who have tried to steal, you know, paintings from other artists and claim it as their own. So I believe that what happens in artistry is ego, like what you were saying in one of our earlier videos, is ego gets in and it can corrupt anything, because it can make a person so greedy and they just want to be on top and they want to be noticed. And so if it means stealing or killing or lying, then they're going to do that, right? And it can corrupt any form of artistry, you know, the media arts, the martial arts, the athletic system. If the person's ego, if it's all about the ego trip and just the competition, then anything can be corrupted. But if a person is truly in their essence doing what they do because they love to do it, you know, like your kung fu is in you. It's in your DNA. No one can say that is not your art. You know, you don't do it for money. You don't do it, you know, just to get notoriety. You do it because that's who you are. And whether or not anyone is watching, you do your kung fu. There are some people who do sports, they're the same way. No matter if they're in front of a stadium of thousands or if they're in their backyard, you know, playing one-on-one with their dad, you know, they're getting it. And so that's what I meant by a person's athletic being their artistry. Because not everyone can sit and do a beautiful painting or music or dance, or some people may come in and they may not be as graceful in their martial arts, but they do have grace doing some other type of activity, and so that would be their artistry. But I believe that when it comes to a person's art, that it's that thing that you love to do, that thing of beauty.
See, the thing that I've discussed in a lot of videos is I think there's a lot of confusion between the difference between art and sport. And in my understanding, from my studies, is that sport involves ego and competitiveness. Art involves creativity, spirituality, and no mind. And like, it's different. You know, so you could be playing basketball, but if you it doesn't matter who you're playing with, but if you're playing in meditation and it's not about competition, but it's just about the art of it, like you talked about, then that's an artist within that. But then the thing is, once you call it a game is a competition, and then it becomes a sport opposed to an art. So like, say if you're just a dancer and you're just dancing because you just love to dance, but then as soon as you enter into competition, and then now you're focused on what other people think and what they're judging you by, and you're trying to win and not lose, then the dancing ends up becoming more of a sport. So basically, I'm here to promote the arts, like basically the spiritual side of the physical expression, opposed to the competitive game side. Now, I'm not saying just putting down the games and competition, but I'm just saying we live in so much of that culture that the people have to learn what the other side is and be able to identify and label it properly. Like, don't call an art a sport and don't call a sport an art, because they're not the same. And according to my understanding and the way that I'm labeling it, an artist is somebody who just creates. Like, say the director of the movie, or they write a screenplay, they create it. That's not a sport, that's not a game. That's art. Now, the thing is, when you're involved in a sport, you can't dribble however you want, because you got to be by those rules of that sport. You're limited in your creativity. Then it's no longer art, because you can't create, because you're bound by these rules, these regulations. And then that is a sport. That's a game. Not saying not saying that one is better over the other, but I'm just saying that's the difference between the art. Because true art is that you just have basketball, you do whatever you want to do with it. There's no traveling, there's no double dribble, you can't do this, it's just, okay, this ball is in your hands, what are you going to use that for? So basically my thing would be like the Harlem Globetrotters, for example, would be more of art in basketball, because they have more flexibility to just kind of do as they please, opposed to like the game of basketball, you know, played for competition and winning or losing, playoffs and titles. I mean, that is something that everybody's already familiar with, especially in America. But what I'm trying to highlight is the difference of the art. And for me, in my heart, I've always been more of an artist. Even when it comes to playing video games, and even when I was younger, I didn't like winning too much, because then I get the person angry that if I win. But then I didn't like losing either. So I'm a colleague, I don't want to lose, I don't want to win either. It's like, man, let me just stop this, and let me just... But when I came to performing, and I learned a form, and then everybody's just applauding like what I did in my form, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was just like, hey, you know, they appreciated my expression of this art. And that's what really makes me feel good. You know, like when people appreciate me, what I do, and it's not about winning or losing. You know, and I think it's just a lot of people have a hard time understanding what art is compared to sport, because they've been grown up around sports everywhere they go. You know, especially Americans, it's just kind of, you're grown up to be like, you gotta fight to win. You gotta be better, not just in athletics, but in and academia and just everything. It's always about winning and winning and winning. But they never really been taught about art, and that's what I'm talking about. Like some of these people in the East, it's like the opposite. They're raised into art, and they're kind of taught to not really be competitive, but just more of like creative. Now I know the two because I've experienced both, and I love the art, and that's what I want to promote, especially because I keep talking about the whole MMA. They keep calling it mixed martial arts, but to me, I'm saying it's not art. That's more like mixed sport, combat sport.
Yeah.
Call it what it is. But art is more like, okay, art is like, say, kendo. Like, there's no competition for that because they're using swords and stuff. I mean, then how come they can't go in the cage? Or ninjas that study the art of ninjutsu, using throwing stars and all these swords and armor. I mean, how come they can't go in the cage? I mean, true martial arts is just, there's no limits of anything. So then, basically, like, a true martial artist is somebody who just studied it because they love it, and they might get good at throwing ninja stars, not because they want to win, but that's just something that they like to do, that they want to get good at. That throwing stars or just getting good at the nunchucks, not necessarily because they want to compete with anybody, but it's just something that they want to get good at, and they might show some people what they could do, but it's not about winning. It's never been about winning. It's just about improving upon yourself and doing what you truly love to do. That to me is the real art. And that's why I make it a point that I don't care to join competitions. I don't ever want to join competitions. Now, I've done competitions in the past as far as like basketball tournaments and all that. And when I first started the martial arts, they put me in a few tournaments. I already know what it's about, and I don't want nothing to do with it. My thing is promoting the arts. Yeah. But you see, I got over like 13,000 videos because I like to express the arts. Yeah. I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to express like what I love. And that's the thing, the difference between a martial artist that's a way of life opposed to like a boxer, a wrestler, like an athlete who's trying to win, rack up wins to win games. And people are familiar with that. I'm just saying that's not what like I promote, but that's what people do. I'm just trying to educate people on what is the opposite of that, you know, which is just basically getting people to identify, like know where your heart is and who you are and which one is better for you. Because not everybody's built to be an artist. Some people, they have such a high competitive drive, like a Michael Jordan. He needs to compete. Like, he brings competition into everything to the point where it's kind of almost psychotic. I mean, he would go into, golf, and he'd be having gambling problems. Baseball, like, he's very, very competitive. Like, even like they're talking about, they're playing ping pong or something like that, and somebody beat him. He just couldn't sleep because he had to beat him back. Like, that's like, he has a fierce competitiveness, and that's who he was. Like, he's built to be an athlete for sport. He's not built for art, but I'm built to be an artist. I'm not going to be a Michael Jordan because that's not who I am, because I'm not cutthroat. I don't have to do whatever it takes to win. That's not who I am. Yeah. Because then I'm not going to take steroids. I'm not going to not sleep. I'm not going to dehydrate myself. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not even enter the competition because that's not who I am. Because that's already going away from who I am to even have to think of the idea of having to prove myself to others. It's like, what do I have to prove myself to you for? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't need to prove myself to you or to anybody. Like, that's the difference between like me and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's great and he made millions, but that's not art to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's as far as my practice of it, my understanding of it through these years, But, that's why I want to promote the martial arts, because I feel this culture needs it. Because there's sports everywhere. People, if they want to play tennis, they could play tennis. They could do volleyball. They could do the track and field to try to go to the Olympics or whatever. But there are people out there that don't even care to go to the Olympics. They don't even join the track and field team, but they just love running. They just run just because they love running. And they might even be better than the people that do go to the competition. But they don't enter the competition. There's people out there that can't be like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like literally, you know, like they're the artist. You know, like you just dance because you love to dance. You know, but I think also there comes a time when you get, you know, you get older in age and it's not even about competition anymore because that you're beyond that point. That's kind of like 20s, 30s, or whatever. And then it's like, say you're 80 years old. It's like, it's not even about that anymore. It's different now. So now that you got that competitiveness out of you, are you still gonna ball now? Even though there's no way you can make it to the NBA because you're 80 years old, are you still gonna play basketball? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you still gonna dance even though you're not like 20 anymore? You can't make it to the ballet team or whatever the case. Are you still gonna dance? If the person's like, no, if I can't make it to the NBA, I'm gonna stop playing. Then that's not.
But then that's not.
Yeah, that's not truly who they were. I mean, that's not truly the life.
Right.
You know, because I want to practice until I die in the martial arts, and not like, oh, I'm gonna practice from the age of 20 to 30 and try to get as many wins as I can. It's not.
Yeah.
That's not the life. That's just, you know, that's just trying to win, you know, and it's different, you know. So, I mean, you see it in my dad, you know, still training. He's not doing it for competition. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing it for competition, and that's what I want to promote to my children as well, and to my students. Is like, hey, you know, we don't need to enter into competitions. We probably might be the only one of the very few martial arts schools that don't enter into any of those things, but you'll see us on YouTube. You know, like that's our way to kind of get out there and just kind of like show people that, hey, you know, this is what we do, and there's people that do appreciate it because people do watch the videos and they're like, hey, you know, that's awesome, you know, like, and that's our way of reaching out there. I think honestly, without the YouTube, it would be hard to, you know, as an artist, to practice so long and then you don't have like an outlet to share it to. So I can understand. Before the advent of these social media and the YouTube, maybe people do enter into competitions because they just want to highlight what they're capable of. You know, because Bruce Lee, when he was living, you know, he didn't go in the karate tournament, but he went there to demonstrate what he did. Like the 1-inch punch, 2-finger push-up. Like it was during the intermissions, he just showed stuff. He wasn't in the competition, but he went there to highlight what he could do. And I can see that. You know, it's like, you know, like they're playing the basketball game, but then the dancers are the halftime show or whatever. It's like, that's their art. You know, that's another good example. That's more of an art, but then the people that are playing the game, that's a sport.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I'm just more of an artist, that's what I promote. You know. Alright, that's it.